the next 7 to 10 years at a high level in the NFL. Love everything about him. However, when you're talking about a top 10 pick in any draft, you're looking for a difference maker. You're looking for a guy that on Monday morning the other team is forced to game plan. And I think he's going to be a really good player, and I think he's going to be the glue for a defense, and he's going to hold it together and be able to do a lot of things. But I'm not sure if he's picking the ball off 7 times a year and forcing 4 fumbles and doing the kind of things that people would consider an elite difference maker. And I think that's what you need to be in the top 10.
Mike, how close do you have the other safeties to Downs?
I think that the Thieneman from Oregon is kind of mid to late, and the same thing with McCoy Warren, the Toledo kid. I think he's a little bit later. But I think we average less than 1 safety a year in the first round over the last 5 years. Less than 1.
Yeah.
And this year I think we're going to get 3.
How are you feeling about the positional value of Sonny Styles and where he's going to go? Because, right, safety is in that conversation with linebacker and running back, and it feels like running back has risen above them in terms of acceptance of being drafted that high. So how are you feeling about Styles, the player, and his positional value?
Well, I think you hit on it, which is literally this year, the 4 least valued positions in the league have players that could be top 10 type players. I mean, the running back with Love. Styles, to me, might end up being the second or third best player out of this draft. I love Sonny Styles, the off-the-ball linebacker. You've got the guard from Penn State, Ioane, who is the closest thing I've seen to Quentin Nelson, and Quentin Nelson, when I forget, 6 or 8 to Indy. Mm-hmm. And then the who was one I'm missing? Running back, guard, safety, and off-the-ball linebacker. So there are 4. Those 4 guys, Downs, Styles, and the offensive guy. I mean, in this particular draft, all of them are elite players. And where I fall is, for instance, the running back. I mean, if you think Jeremiah Love is going to do the same things in the NFL that Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson does, you take him. Forget about all the other conversations. He's that good. If you believe that, he can change your offense. So if a player is an elite player at that position, I don't really care that it's not one of the valued positions in the NFL.
Mike Mayock joining us here at 105 through the Fan. Does it matter where you are as an organization in terms of like your window that of drafting a player from one of these non-premium positions? Like if you're close to winning now and you just happen to be up there, take him. But if you're like Tennessee or Arizona, you're far away, that you would shy away from that.
Yeah, it's a good question, and the analytics guys would tell you that. They would tell you, look what happened with Ashton Genty last year with the Raiders. You know, he went 6th overall as a running back, and they would say, hey, you know, that already, his pay scale already puts him at like 5th, 6th, 7th amongst all the running backs in the league, and literally they're not going to be good enough for him to add value. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You know, that's the point they're going to make, and my point is every time you don't take an elite player or a better player, you're really diluting the value of your own team regardless of position.
Mike Mayock joining us here on 105 through the Fan. Mike, you know, when you were with the Raiders, you guys drafted edge rushers with some length. Like Max Crosby, maybe his arms weren't quite as long, but his wingspan was on the higher end. How do you approach an edge rusher like Bain, who just we've never seen anybody with arm length like that, and how much of a problem do you think it would be? How would you approach him if you were running a draft room right now, and how you guys would have him on the board?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is alignment within your building. So you've got a guy that's that's an anomaly with his arms. Number one, I'd make sure our guys measured him, because there's usually a differential between Senior Bowl, Combine, Pro Days, and it used to drive me crazy that one arm length was 32 and a half and another was 31 and a quarter. You know, so you really have to qualify it. That's point number one. Point number 2 is once you buy into the fact that he has historically short arms for that position, he needs an elite power to overcome it. He needs something elite in his game that can change the narrative. And what this kid does have is power. he has to have an ability to get into an offensive tackle's chest. Because if that tackle just keeps punching him wide, he's not going to get to a quarterback. So he's got to have an elite power quotient, and this kid does. So I think what you do is you sit down in your building with your head coach, your defensive coordinator, and your scouts, and you work through, okay, how do we see this kid? Can he overcome that? Are there other players that have? How have they done it? And if so, what's our plan to develop him? Are we going to kick him inside in sub packages on third down, get him up against the shorter arm centers and guards? How are we going to play this kid? And I think it's important that the entire building is on the plan, and that day one, once he gets to camp, you're going to implement that plan.
How do you end up approaching somebody like Arvell Reese, where you're looking at him and you go, linebacker tape is really good, but the skill set definitely looks like it could be an NFL edge rusher, but that is a projection since he wasn't asked to do that consistently at Ohio State. How do you view Reese? Do you view him as full-time NFL linebacker with some rush capability, or is that an edge rusher to you?
Yeah, I think he's rare, and I think you look at him like worst-case scenario, he's an all-pro off-the-ball linebacker. And best-case scenario, because of what's happening with NFL defenses and sub-packages these days, he becomes a joker, meaning you can move him anywhere, and that's what Ohio State did. What was kind of crazy about this kid at Ohio State is within one game he would play three different positions. They had him at off-the-ball linebacker, and he was outstanding. They would play him at edge, defensive end, outside linebacker, and he was really good. And then on third down, he'd be anywhere from standing up over the center all the way out to past the defensive end, and they'd move him around, and he'd play all the game, twist, stunts, whatever. He knows how to do that. Now, what you have to do is, again, have a defined plan. Who is he? Is he Micah Parsons? Is he the kid that came out last year from Georgia, Jalen Walker? Jalen Walker was an off-the-ball linebacker that I thought had to be 100% on the line of scrimmage. And that's what Atlanta did. They drafted him in the first round. They put him as a defensive end, and that's who he's going to be. I think this kid Reese is a little bit different. He can play 34 outside linebacker, and I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to ultimately integrate him into being close to a full-time pass rusher like a Micah Parsons is now.
Mike, when you're putting your final board together, what do you do with a player like Jermon McCoy, the corner from Tennessee, whose tape 2 years ago is outstanding, but then he doesn't play a year due to the injury, and then depending on your medical staff, might have to have another surgery on that knee?
Yeah, we all saw what happened to Will Johnson last year from Michigan. I think he ended up going like 47 to Arizona.
Yeah.
And he was a very talented kid, very similar to McCoy. If the medical concerns, and this is where you lean on your doctors, but if your doctors say, look, I'm not even sure he's going to get through this year, let alone next year, it's a little different than if they say, I think he's good for one contract. Then you say, okay, are we good with getting a first-round pick for only one contract? And then we're going to deal with a corner with bulky knees. So you got to kind of lean on your medical, and if it's legit, and I think there's more smoke. I think there's more fire than smoke here. I think it might be legit. Then I think you're going to see this kid fall a lot like the Michigan kid did a year ago.
Mike Mayock, draft analyst here on 105.3 The Fan. Obviously, corner is a very much discussed position for the Cowboys. Mike, what is your evaluation of this corner class? And let's start off with Delane, who a lot of people have now going to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think he becomes even more valuable now if the medical concerns about McCoy are legit, because teams are going to look at it like Dallas at 12 and 20 and going, wait a minute, a minute ago we thought we had two guys that either one of which would be acceptable to us. We thought we had two guys. Now there's only one. So I think Delane's going in the top 10. That's the first thing. And then you got to kind of look around and say, okay, where's Colton Hood going? Is he going to get pushed up a little bit? He's a legit first-round corner. Avion Terrell from Clemson, everybody publicly is kind of off him a little bit because he supposedly ran 4.6, and I kind of laughed because I watched the tape, and he can play. He can flat out play. He can run also. I've confirmed with some people around the league that they think he can run also. I think Terrell's going to go, and I think also the kid from South Carolina and the kid from San Diego. Yeah, Cisse, and then the kid I really like that I think is going to get into the 20s is a San Diego State kid. He can play press, he can play off, he tackles, he's got a great reputation as a young man. I think he's going to get pushed up a little bit also.
Yeah, Mike, there's some discussion, and we're talking with Mike Mayock here on 105 through the Fan. There's some discussion that if Dallas were to get wiped out at 12 of the defenders they want, because they clearly are in need of some defensive help, that their board may be staring them in the face and looking like, man, the value here is really Jordan Tyson, the receiver from Arizona State, if he were to get pushed down there. When you've got as many defensive needs as the Cowboys do, could you see a scenario where you could justify saying, hey, Tyson's just too good a value here, or there's some offensive player that's too good a value here to just reach on a defender at 12?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things filtering through this conversation. One is what do your medical people say about Tyson? There's growing concern around the league that players that have a, quote, volume of injuries, not just, okay, he went to his pro day, he showed out, he looked good, let's go. But if you've had a volume of injuries in college, you're more likely to continue that pattern, and therefore his risk-reward scenario is real. He's got the highest ceiling in the draft at wideout, yet I'm concerned about where the floor would be. That's point number one. However, philosophically, if your defensive board is already wiped out at 12, which I have a problem thinking that the whole board would be, but if it is, then you got to look at the offensive side, say who's the best player there. Is it, it might be Mekhi Lemon. It might be a tackle. You've got a tackle that, potentially you could kick inside the guard. And maybe that unit of 5 players is better this year. So I 100% believe that if your defensive board is decimated and there's more value in offense, you got to go there.
In a hypothetical, let's say it does get wiped out, and I'm the Cowboys, I reach out to you about a player you know well in Max Crosby that you drafted in Vegas. What do you think is his future right now, health-wise, and should the Cowboys still consider making a move for him?
I'm very partial to Max. I know him very, very well, and I stay in touch with him. And I think he's a special human being for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is overcoming the addiction that he had. But at the end of the day, Max Crosby makes any freaking team better when he walks into their locker room. Just walking in the locker room. He's one of those very few guys that is a come with me and we're going to get better kind of guy. Like, he's going to outwork people think they know how to work hard. Wait till Max gets there. And it's not like a big mouth screaming and yelling at people. It's just people are going to follow him in the right direction. And, as long as you're comfortable with his medical, which certainly the Raiders are, and you think you can get 3+ quality years out of Max, I would tell any team, I would be all in on Max Crosby.
Mike, you have been in that room. They're changing it this year to 8 minutes on the clock. How much of an impact do you think that is going to have? And if you're a team like the Cowboys, rumored to be doing some moving, does that hurt you a lot more than the way they've set it up?
If you're really well prepared and you can make a decision, and you've got the right people in the room with you, and you've gone through a lot of the scenarios prior, I think it can help a well-prepared team. It's extra pressure on teams that have to make a quicker decision. And if you can move nimbly, quickly, and decisively, you might be able to make a couple of pretty good deals. And I would tell you that a lot of the GMs are making phone calls to each other right now, and they're kind of sharing, hey, I'd move down from 12 or 20, or I'd like to move up, or we're ready to move either direction. Call me if you need either way. Here's what I'm looking at from a value perspective for pick number 20. I think a lot of those conversations are going on around the league, which only help once you get close to being on the clock.
Mike Mayock, Sumer Sports, to follow even more of his fantastic coverage. Thank you so much for joining us again, and enjoy the draft.
Hey, thanks for having me on, fellas. Have a great day.
There he is, Mike Mayock, former NFL Network, former Raiders GM, right here on Sean and RJ. Let's line up calls for Wolf.
I will be at the Addison location, basically Beltline and the Toll, I think, Arapahoe, something like that. Chief, where are you going to be?
I'll be in Grapevine.
Grapevine. Lucius, where are you going to be?
Club Pluckers in Arlington at the Highlands.
Club Pluckers in Arlington at the Highlands. And, of course, Broadus and Wolchuk will be up there at the Star doing the official draft show along with the guys from DallasCowboys.com. But we'd love to have you join us. We'll listen along, watch along at the Pluckers while we enjoyed fried Oreos and monster-size cold beers. We got a John Machota 7-round mock draft to look at here, boys. Football's finest coming up at the top of the hour. And Machota has the Cowboys going up to number 6 overall here in round 1 in that trade with Cleveland for 6 and 39. Brian, you opened the show today saying you didn't think that was going to happen.
I don't think so.
Do you think the Cowboys don't want to or Cleveland doesn't want to?
I think Dallas would like to read and see what happens in front of them, but I think they're more comfortable standing there at 12 and 20 and making a pick. I think they want to pick 2 players there, and whatever players available at that spot, they're okay with it.
Do you think they would disagree with maybe our idea that moving down from 20 to 39 isn't that big of a drop?
I think they want to just pick the player there. I think
Yeah.
I think they honestly have somebody in mind there at 20.
Yeah.
Where we're kind of like a little bit chaotic and thinking like, well, they could go.
Go be aggressive. Go get your guy.
Yeah, I think they have somebody in mind they would like to take at 20. I think they're okay with that.
Sonny Styles, a fairly polarizing player, I think, for some people. But I think publicly, ever since the Combine happened, he has just been skyrocketing up. And, you know, people look at Sonny Styles as maybe a can't-miss linebacker, as a superstar linebacker. I don't know what kind of a floor and a ceiling you guys would anticipate, but Machota links to Dane Brugler in The Athletic, his quick write-up, the freaky height and the weight and the speed and all that, processes quickly, delivers pop at contact as a downhill player, rarely misses tackles. Though he plays with terrific reaction quickness, the next step in his development is to improve his anticipation, especially in coverage, so he can make more plays on the football. I mean, what do you think about what his limitations are and how much he'd help the Cowboys here in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big area that you saw him improve throughout the season was second-level blocks. Like, if a lineman's able to get to the second level on him, how does he disengage? How is he able to avoid the trash? Like, we talked about Jimmy Roller earlier from Michigan, and he does an excellent job of evading blocks. Then Sonny Styles, you saw it kind of click for him and improve throughout the season, which is why I think he's an ascending player that's only going to get better. It's interesting, you know, it's the coverage, because I think the coverage is some of the strengths in his game. Maybe he's worked on more, like the downhill run defense. I think as a blitzer, there's a lot of untapped potential there. He had 6 sacks 2 years ago. Ohio State didn't use him as much in that regard this past year, but I think a lot of it is just really being able to read and diagnose where the run play's going and then being able to avoid the trash and navigate blocks. But I think I'm betting on this guy. I think he's got all the physical traits. He's got the IQ to be able to do it. I think I put him at 8 overall, or maybe 7 overall in my stack in the top 100.
Dane's got him at 4.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, Sonny Styles is definitely a player I would love to have. I think he clearly is the best linebacker in the draft.
Yeah, but you're talking about a situation potentially too, and just know this going in. I mean, there's a lot of things to really like and love about this player. He's played linebacker for 2 years. That's the thing. I mean, if you're gonna put him in a situation, and man, we were talking about Donovan Ezraku last year, and I was sitting there going, the learning curve, not as steep, all these things. Just know that this guy has played linebacker for 2 years. You know, he was a converted safety. The measurables, the testing, everything about it. You know, I think there's some legitimate questions about the football, some of the things that happened to him on the field when it comes to, I think you can move him. I think you can misdirect him. I think his eyes sometimes fail him, but maybe that's because he hasn't played the position for a long time.
Yeah.
Just know when you draft him, there might be some learning curve issues that you're going to have to deal with. And if you're totally comfortable with that, then by all means, go for it. But I will say this isn't one of these guys that's played 4 years at Ohio State at a position, and every year we've seen him grow and grow and grow. Like, we'll know, like Smith, the wide receiver from Ohio State, we saw him his first year, second year, third. We see that growth as a player, and he's played the position. Where Styles is different is the fact that he's only done this for 2 years. The upside, all those things could be huge. Just know that if you get him and he doesn't look instinctive and he doesn't look aware, that might be him trying to learn the position.
If you could take two players and combine them, do you think we'd have the perfect linebacker ever if we had Sonny Styles physically with C.J. Allen's history of starting from day one and being like a thoroughbred IQ linebacker guy? If you could just morph those two guys together, we could talk about the perfect linebacker.
If you gave me the awareness of Rodriguez from Texas Tech.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Sorry, Wolchuk. I discredited your guy.
Okay.
No.
Right.
If you give me the awareness, I mean, if you give me somebody that has played the position and has seen blocking schemes, I think some of the things that he struggled with early in the campaign was because he hadn't seen a lot of it.
For sure.
He hadn't seen.
And it's fair to say that by the final game to the first game, he got better?
Yeah,
100%. That's good.
But all of a sudden you see down blocks and you're playing the down block and all of a sudden, oh, wait, they're pulling somebody or they're trapping me or they're sending, we're giving jet sweep, orbit motions, things like that. These are things he's seeing. And it's going to take. I think it's going to take a little time.
Do you think with the way offenses play now, is it more mentally taxing to play linebacker in this day and age than what it was maybe in the early 2000s or like in the 90s, or really just the route time in football? Just with all the eye candy and the movement, you see linemen misdirection. Usually it was like when you see a lineman pull to the left, that's where the ball's going.
Yeah.
Now it's like not 100% of the time. It used to be like you have a key. Yeah. And it's going to take you to the ball. And now it feels like, holy crap, bro. There's 9 different things that can happen on this play. Like being a linebacker today, just from my vantage point, gosh, it feels like it's way more of they're trying to confuse you.
See, like the Swessinger, the kid that came out of UCLA last year, and the reason why I think he had success is you watch him at UCLA, and Zach, please chime in. Undersized guy, but played with tremendous instinct and awareness.
Yeah, he did.
Absolutely. He was like, okay, I'm reading blocks. Boom, knife it. Oh, the ball's going outside. I got to beat it to the outside.
One step ahead.
Yeah, sometimes when you're undersized or you're small, you have to have the superpower of mental capacity of, okay, this is what they're trying to do to me. And maybe it's one of those things where you study and you prep.
Right.
Sean Lee, Leighton Vander Esch, Dat Wynn, Dexter Coakley. The linebackers that have played here that have had success have been really good readers and been really the instincts to make plays because they're a step ahead. This is where I think Styles is just a little bit lacking, is he doesn't have that kind of experience yet, and he will. He'll get it. The more he plays, the better he'll play.
It was the beauty of watching his tape. That's what I loved, is from week 1 against Texas to in the Big Ten championship game against the team that won the Natty in Indiana.
Yeah,
that was his best performance.
Yeah, and I think experience is incredible, and you can't buy it and you can't train for it, but it doesn't always fix the issue. Like the ability to anticipate what the other team is about to do and understanding the spatial awareness of it. Some guys can play basketball their entire lives and never be a point guard, But the kid that at 5 years old was your point guard was born to do it, And in basketball, it's a lot more clear the differences in the skill set. But I think that ability to anticipate and track everybody else on your team and the other team and see how they're opening and closing space at the same time is natural. You can watch the film and give yourself a shot, but it's what happens in that 1/10 of a second. When the pieces on the chessboard shift, how quickly do your eyes tell your feet, I got to go there? And for guys that don't show it in college, it's tricky to believe that they're going to get there.
His lack of experience for the position is just something you got to be aware of.
Yeah,
it could very well be could be in a situation though where I think he's going to get better. Don't get me wrong.
I wonder.
I just don't know how plug and play he is right now.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. I think that he might look terrible the first 5 weeks of the season. I mean, look terrible of like, Oh, he got confused. Oh, he missed a tackle. Oh, he was a step late. And then week 6, all of a sudden the thing starts to click.
All right, we got to run. We got football's finest coming up next, Chief. Where's it going?
What does Will McClay's history tell us about potential Cowboys?
12 and 20. Give us your initial feel. Give us your initial Brad Sham thumbs up list on the prospects that we've been talking so much about.
Yeah, it seems like there's 5 that we know of, 5 or 6, and I'm looking at the defensive side that everybody gets excited about. In my perfect world, I think they'd find out a way to get Caleb Downs because, I've watched him a little, but from everything that you read and people you talk to, it kind of makes me think of a little smaller Darren Woodson. Smaller, but smart, intense leader, and will do everything. Remember how Woody started? I mean, he came in he was a linebacker, and he played in the slot. Nobody like him had ever played in the slot. Well, this is what this guy does, everything, and it's what's between his ears, and it's the leadership. So this guy can run your defense for a long time, and then, in my perfect world, having gotten him, they would get Jacob Rodriguez, who I absolutely love, and I wouldn't be afraid to take him at 20, even though most of the draft, the mocks and everything, Sean, say that's too high. I don't believe in too high. Now you can reach. There's an extreme.
Well, he can't.
But if, especially, no, perhaps not. But just listen to the people who are respectable opinions, who really know what they're talking about, and then you watch him. And I have watched him a little more. And I just think that he is. Well, the first time I saw him, I thought, well, this guy is like a little bit bigger than Nat Wynn, who was an outstanding player. And if you say I'll be happy with Rodriguez at somewhere in the second round, but I wouldn't take him at 20, and he goes in the second round and becomes a really outstanding player, then you could have taken him at 20. It's fine. So that's my perfect world. Now, it feels to me like they better get the 6 if they want to get one of these premier players. I saw, I don't know if it was ESPN or whoever it was, had another new mock this morning, and there was no trade, and they came away with Hood and Falk, and those are good players. My sense when I hear that is I'm a little underwhelmed, but I do have to say, the last time I remember saying to you guys, if this happens, they would be settling, it was Tyler Smith. And so that turned out okay. Here's the other thing, and nobody wants to hear this, and I don't even want to hear it very much. You can't rule out an offensive player depending on how the board goes. If C.D. Lamb falls in your lap and everybody else is gone, then take him. If there's an offensive tackle who is going to erase the questions and everybody on the defensive side that you really want is gone, don't hesitate. Take him. So, but, I would love to see him go up. I think if you go to 6, there's a lot of volatility between 3 and that 5 or 6. Well, the Giants are going to clean up whatever they do. But it just feels like at 6 you'll get one of the top guys. I really would not want to give up 20 if I could avoid it, but I wouldn't mind it if I'm getting 39. That's a very popular mock trade. I think I could talk myself into it if I get the right guy at 6, and then I can project somebody that I really can use at 39. I could talk myself into that.
Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys, previewing the draft here on The Fan. Brad, at 12, who else do you really like or are hearing great things about that you trust when it comes down to Delane, Styles, and any other possibility there after Downs?
I just think that Styles, Delane, maybe Bain. I understand the history. I think those Styles, Delane, Bain, Downs, and Reese. I don't think I'm forgetting any of the top defensive players. I just don't think any of them will make it to 12. One might, but you have to. That's obviously the risk you run. You have to know that when you're sitting there on the board, and if that's why I say you have to just calculate the cost. If you see one of those guys, they've talked. They've Kevin Costnered all their people with phone calls, and they kind of know. They kind of have a pretty good feeling about who's going to take whom before 6, and then they got a sense of after 6. So I don't know, Sean, that any of those guys gets to 12, and that's why I think you have to look at are we talking about, the thing I like about Styles and Downs is they're not just physical specimens. These guys are both, by reputation, super smart and leaders. And I had I don't want to name the guy because it would embarrass him, but I had a very critical player on their team late in the year, and I took him aside and said, "What do you need?" He said, "We need some more grown-ups." And he was talking about, and he said, Quinnen Williams is a grown-up. Kenny Clark is a grown-up. Even Ezaraku, as young as he is a grown-up. We need more grown-ups. And that sounds to me like what you're getting in Downs and Styles. The thing about Styles, if you just close your eyes and think about dominating linebackers that they've even just had here, I mean, we saw what Sean Lee did when he was healthy. We see what Overshown means when he is healthy. And if you close your eyes, you can't predict health, but if you close your eyes and look at what Styles has been, you can see that. You can see a guy that just kind of takes over the defense and puts fear in the other side. So those 5 guys, I think, separate themselves. And after that, there will be good players, but they're going to be second-round players because there just aren't that many top first-round players. And if you've got the capital to go get one without it costing too much, I'm too conservative sometimes, I admit it, on some of these things, but without it costing too much, I'd go ahead and do it.
Brad, how much of an impact or an influence, I guess, over their decision-making do you think Christian Parker's going to have? Not just his scheme and them trying to fit to it, but specifically his voice saying, hey, I want this guy, and making himself an authority in that draft room.
Yeah, Bobby, it feels like a lot, and I hope that's the case, because look, I love Rod Marinelli. He's a great human being. He doesn't apologize to anybody for his career, and he's why T.J. Watt's not here. And so they have a history of giving coaches on one side of the ball or the other a lot of authority. And what they have invested kind of emotionally, not just financially, but emotionally in Parker and the way that they've let him put the staff together, I think they looked at and you've said this, you've written it. They've looked at the offensive staff. They looked what Clayton Adams did with a lot of guys who people had never heard of. Some had never coached in the NFL. Look at the staff they put together and what it produced. I think they see that in Parker and the people that he's hired. And so I think the answer to your question is a lot. I think that he could be a tiebreaker. If someone says this guy or this guy, and Parker's on the table saying this guy, I think it'll be him.
Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys here on Sean and RJ 105.3 The Fan. How have you felt about the rest of the offseason, starting with Aubrey's extension yesterday? You go and you get Jalen Thompson. You go and you get Durant at corner, the Rashawn Gary move. Your assessment of the busty budget offseason along with Aubrey yesterday.
Yeah, well, let me start with Aubrey because I thought they did that really well. And I would have, Sean, I'd have given him $10 million, right? Again, not my money, but they do have to kind of calculate a little bit forward. But they very wisely said, if anyone thinks they want to pay more than this, we can still match it.
Yeah.
And if not, but you're not going to get draft choices that will compensate you for that guy. He's different. I think they knew they weren't going to get anybody to pay him more than that. So they sat back, 2 other kickers signed, I think it's 2, and reset the top of the market at a price they were still willing to pay. So he wanted to be the top paid kicker when I say he, it's a lot his agent also. I mean, we all, anybody who knows Aubrey knows he's not sitting over there pounding the table for more money. I want to be the highest paid kicker. Okay, let's just sit back and see what that is. Well, it became what it became, and now, okay, we'll move up a little bit from that and lock you up, and we love you, and here's how much we love you. And he's clearly very happy with it. I thought they did that really well. I can't say I know or trust even, but I hope that when we're done with the Pickens saga, it will be much the same thing. I thought it was really smart to put the non-exclusive tag on him because it gave his guys an opportunity to go shop him around. No one's going to pay that price, but if someone does, okay. So what I really, part of the, and I weave this into your question about the whole bust the budget off season. One of the things I was hoping, and I'm still hoping it because we haven't crossed the Rubicon yet, is that we would get through an off season without contract drama. Because we're all sick of it.
Yeah.
And some of that depends on the player. So if Pickens does it differently than Parsons did it, for instance, if he comes and participates and if he wants to sit out a couple OTAs, I don't care. But if he's in minicamp and he is participating and he's on the field in training camp, then I will say that they handled it well. I think there's a lot of look. The thing about Pickens, and again, Sean, I would give him the money. Here, now this was before Smith and Jigba signed his deal.
Yeah.
But I would have said, well, here, I'll give you 30. What are you going to get? 28? We'll give you 34. But keep this in mind. He is one of the guys who decided in the first game after Marshawn Nealon died that he had to stay out and break curfew in Las Vegas. Now, that's a red flag. And you live with red flags, but when you're starting to throw huge money, like a 10% of your payroll kind of money at a guy, then you have to examine that behavior. That, to me, is a legitimate reason to take a deep breath and say, hold on, show me another season of good behavior. And well, he's going to miss meetings. He's going to sleep late. That's who he is. A lot of guys are like that, and they're great players, and he's a great player. I want another off season without that kind of thing. I want a good behavior. I want a full season showing me who you are before I give you that kind of money. Might it cost them more? Yeah, it might cost them more, but it's a little bit risky. But that's what I'm hoping for Pickens. The rest of it, I give them high marks, for really trying with Crosby and with the linebackers who wound up going to
Raiders.
Las Vegas. Yeah. And it turned out that so we got 2 or 3 guys who have played together in college, and they wanted to go play together. And okay, that's fine. That's a hard one to beat, and it's a fair thing to say. Try isn't good. Do is good. And so you tried to get them, and you didn't get them, then you failed. That's a fair thing to say. On the other hand, you still have to be smart about it. I think what they did in the secondary, all those guys they signed in the secondary, I don't know how good they'll be, but I don't think any of us would dispute that they are light years ahead of where they were last year. They went to Oxnard with 4 of their identifiable top 5 corners physically unavailable until I don't know when. And that was a disaster. And we knew that was going to be a disaster. And so they have addressed that part of it. And would you like 2 more pass rushers? Absolutely. And that's why I wouldn't be afraid to take a chance on Bain, despite his short arms and the accident and all of that. I think he's a difference maker from what I've seen, what my eyes have seen. Now, there can be some other guys who will pop up. And by the way, parenthetically, I really dislike the term edge rusher because what you want is a defensive end. You got to stop the run. You got to hold the edge on the run also. So if all the guy can do is pass rush, there can be a spot for him, and he's James Houston. And then he can play on special teams, but he's not going to play 35 snaps a game and be a guy who week in and week out is going to make a difference at the end of the game. So would you like some more of that? Yep, sure would. And there might be some guys on Friday and Saturday who jump up. Don't forget, Prescott's a 4th-round pick. Witten's a 3rd-round pick. That, there's guys who are undrafted free agents. We because it's the nature of the beast, we focus on the 1st round. But clearly they need more at linebacker, and probably at least one more, maybe 2 defensive ends for them to get to be where they'd really like to be. Are they better than they were a year ago? Yeah, I think they're better. I think they're better. Are they better enough? The only thing that gives me a little pause is we presume that the offense will be what it was. And a lot can happen. Give me tackles. Give me Pickens in the right frame of mind. Everything's got to go right for the offense to be as good as it was last year. If it is, the defensive improvement, I would say, might, let's see what happens this weekend, might be enough to boost them up a little bit more to where they would say, yeah, they could make the playoffs, might win a game. To win 2 or 3 games, I still think there's some work to do.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for the preview. Enjoy the show.
Thanks, boys.
Voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham. Can RJ
consider an elite difference maker, and I think that's what you need to be in the top 10.
Mike, how close do you have the other safeties to downs?
I think that the Thieneman from Oregon is kind of mid to late, and the same thing with McCoy Warren, the Toledo kid. I think he's a little bit later. But I think we average less than 1 safety a year in the 1st round over the last 5 years. Less than 1.
Yeah.
And this year I think we're going to get 3.
How are you feeling about the positional value of Sonny Styles and where he's going to go? Because, right, safety is in that conversation with linebacker and running back, and it feels like running back has risen above them in terms of acceptance of being drafted that high. So how are you feeling about Styles, the player, and his positional value?
Well, I think you hit on it, which is literally this year, the 4 least valued positions in the league have players that could be top 10 type players. I mean, the running back with Love. Styles, to me, might end up being the 2nd or 3rd best player out of this draft. I love Sonny Styles, the off-the-ball linebacker. You've got the guard from Penn State, Ioane, who is the closest thing I've seen to Quentin Nelson, and Quentin Nelson, I forget, 6 or 8 to Indy. And then the who was one I'm missing? Running back, guard, safety, and off-the-ball linebacker. So there are 4. Those 4 guys, Downs, Styles, and the offensive guy. I mean, in this particular draft, all of them are elite players. And where I fall is, for instance, the running back. I mean, if you think Jeremiah Love is going to do the same things in the NFL that Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson does, you take him. Forget about all the other conversations. He's that good. If you believe that, he can change your offense. So if a player is an elite player at that position, I don't really care that it's not one of